Hey everyone, in this video we are going to talk about the country of Jordan. They've been in the headlines, but kind of not in the headlines, meaning we always talk about them as one of the countries that Iran is shelling. But beyond that, there doesn't seem to be much discussion of Jordan. And in this video, we're going to try to understand some of the dynamics that are going on there internally. And it's a little bit more complicated than many people think. So let's get to the headlines. Let's start with today's headlines here. This is just from a few hours ago. Jordan's army says it shot down 5 missiles launched from Iran. Jordan's military says in a statement that its air defenses have shot down 5 missiles coming from Iran that targeted the kingdom's territory, adding that the attack caused no casualties. The military's official spokesperson said, quote, air defenses engaged 5 missiles launched from Iran targeting the kingdom's territory early this morning, Thursday. The missiles were detected, intercepted, and shot down according to the established defense plans, the statement says. The launches appear to be a reaction to widespread overnight U.S. attacks on Iran. Jordan is home to U.S. bases that have repeatedly been targeted by Tehran in recent weeks. And here this is from yesterday. U.S. military launches strikes on Iran in retaliation for attacks on U.S. base in Jordan. The U.S. military began conducting airstrikes against Iran late Wednesday in retaliation for the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps attacking a U.S. base in Jordan the day before. The IRGC fired 5 missiles at U.S. forces in Jordan Tuesday evening. Hours later, the U.S. and Saudi Arabia launched strikes on Iran-backed militias in Iraq, raising the risk of returning the region to all-out war. And here from Iranian state media from today, IRGC announces strike on Al-Azraq Air Base, claims destruction of 3 F-35 jets. And Jordan will be mentioned towards the end of this piece, because this is where that base is. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said in statement number 55 that it had carried out a ballistic missile strike on Al-Azraq Air Base in response to what it described as a U.S. airstrike on residential homes in Iran's Qeshm Island. According to the IRGC's public relations office, the overnight U.S. attack targeted 2 residential houses in Qeshm with bunker buster bombs. That is highly unlikely, killing 3 members of a family, a father, mother, and child, and injuring 2 other children. The United States has a very small stockpile of bunker buster bombs, and it only uses them very, very sparingly and would probably never do such a thing. It would be a waste of munitions. In any event, that's not what this is about. The statement said that in retaliation, the IRGC Aerospace Force launched several ballistic missiles at the parking apron and maintenance hangars used by U.S. F-35 fighter jets at the Al-Azraq Air Base on Thursday morning. The IRGC claimed that 3 F-35 aircraft were completely destroyed. 3 others sustained heavy damage, and several U.S. officers and maintenance personnel were killed in the attack. That's their claim. The IRGC also addressed the people of Jordan, thanking them for what it described as their support and the outspoken positions taken by segments of the country's elite. It said that its campaign against U.S. forces would continue until the last American occupier is expelled from Islamic land. So they're thanking the Jordanian people for their support. What is this all about? That's what the rest of this video is going to be about. Before we get to that, I want to tell you about an exciting event that is taking place while I'm here in the United States. I will be speaking in New York on August 2nd, this coming Sunday at 5 p.m., and the topic will be the most dangerous man in America, Zohran Mamdani. We're going to talk about his combination of socialism and Islamism, what this all means, and why he's such a dangerous person. We're going to talk about Zohran Mamdani and also answer other questions, a meet and greet in New York. We're deliberately not announcing the location because the way things are in certain parts of the United States these days, it would probably be best that we not announce the location. So when you register for this event, if you fill out the registration, you will receive, it's free of charge, but you'll receive information about where it's going to be. But the time is going to be on Sunday, August 2nd, and you can register by clicking the QR code that you see up there in the corner or right here on the screen. Or you can go to the website Israel365.com/PWNY. That's my initials, Pesach Wolicki, PWNY for New York. So Israel365.com/PWNY, or click the QR code on the screen. And that will be in New York on August 2nd, this coming Sunday, just a couple days from now at 5 p.m. So if you're interested, please register and let us know. and then you'll get the further information. All right, so let's get back to what we are talking about here, to our subject, which is Jordan. So what is it? What did it mean when the Iranians wrote in this on WANA, in this state media outlet, that the IRGC addressed the people of Jordan, thanking them for their support and the outspoken positions taken by the country's elite? So here is what that is about. That is about this. And this is from the Palestine Chronicle, which is like a Palestinian Authority aligned publication. Jordan is not party to this war. Public figures demand U.S. troop withdrawal. This is from July 22nd, so it's from a week ago. And look what this says here. More than 100 Jordanian public figures, here, we'll start with the article. More than 100 Jordanian political, national, cultural, academic, and tribal figures have issued a joint statement calling on the government to remove all foreign military forces from Jordan and revoke or substantially restrict the kingdom's security and military agreement with the United States. They want the U.S. gone. The statement warns that the continued presence of foreign troops exposes Jordan to growing political, military, and economic risks, while increasing the likelihood that the kingdom will become directly involved in the expanding regional conflict. The declaration was signed by former ministers, members of parliament, academics, lawyers, writers, trade unionists, retired military officers, and tribal leaders, making it one of the broadest public appeals issued in Jordan since the latest regional escalation began. The signatories argued that the presence of foreign forces on Jordanian territory does not serve the national interest, urging the government to withdraw the security and military agreement concluded with Washington and submit to the Jordanian parliament for legislative review. We'll get to the Jordanian parliament in a bit. According to the statement, parliament and Jordanian civil society should have the opportunity to examine the agreement, while the public should be informed of any obligations that could affect the country's sovereignty, national security, and independent decision-making. The statement further urged the government to ensure that Jordan's strategic infrastructure, including airports, seaports, military bases, and other vital facilities, is not used for military, logistical, or security operations connected to the ongoing regional conflict. Such measures, the signatories argued, are necessary to protect Jordan from becoming a battlefield or a launching point for military operations, thereby shielding the kingdom from the consequences of any broader regional confrontation. Jordan is not a party to this war, the statement declared. Okay, so that's what they were referring to here. And, Jordan is a monarchy. You have King Abdullah, and he's the boss. He's the king, but they also have a parliament. And the monarchy in Jordan is far more pro-Western and far more secular than the Jordanian population. And that's where we're starting to see this tension bubbling up to the surface. They're not happy being on the American side of this. The people, I mean. And here's a piece from the Jerusalem Post on this topic, and this is from today. Exactly what Iran intended. Some Jordanians buckle under missile pressure, demand U.S. withdrawal. The Islamic Republic is making headway in its ambition to sow discord within Jordan and create governmental chaos in order to expand Iranian influence in the country, Professor Ronen Yitzhak told the Jerusalem Post on Thursday, today. Following the publication of an open letter signed by hundreds of Jordanian political and legal figures demanding the withdrawal of U.S. forces. The letter, a rare public challenge to the Jordanian government, was signed by both Palestinian and original Jordanian tribes, which is what makes it particularly disturbing, Yitzhak said. Quote, this is exactly what Iran intended when it launched missiles at Jordan, as well as the other Gulf states. Its goal was to put pressure on the Jordanian population to demand the removal of the American presence. But it is more than that. There's an Iranian intention to deepen the gap between the Jordanian government, which supports the United States, and the Jordanian people, which opposes American policy. There you have it. As part of the Iranian ambition to sow discord within Jordan and cause governmental chaos in order to increase Iranian influence in Jordan. This has been Iran's ambition for over 20 years. The letter claimed that U.S. military presence exposes Jordan to security, political, and economic risks that serve no national interest and increases the likelihood of our country being dragged into regional conflict to which it is not a party. Jordan currently hosts around 4,000 American troops, according to the U.S. Congress. The country also receives substantial U.S. military assistance, with annual aid tripling over the past 15 years. Tripling. While Israel's drawing down its aid, here it's tripling. Total bilateral U.S. assistance to Jordan, administered through the state and defense departments, amounted to approximately $33.8 billion from 1951 through the fiscal year 2025, and the U.S. has provided an additional $2.5 billion in security assistance to Jordan through multiple defense appropriations accounts. Though Amman's relationship with the U.S. has been undoubtedly beneficial, the regional escalation has also had a deep impact on Jordan's economy. The Central Bank of Jordan reported that in the first half of 2026, tourism revenue went down from expatriate Jordanians by 12%, meaning less expat Jordans are coming back for a visit. U.S. nationals by 25% and European nationals by 28%. So no one's way down on tourism. According to the New York Times, the tourism industry alone makes up 18% of Jordan's revenues. So they're suffering because of the war. Makes sense. Abdullah's strategic political approach, as we knew, was the commander of Jordan's special forces until his appointment as king in 1999, and he cooperated with the West and recognizes the importance of strategic relations between countries, including the State of Israel. Issues relating to the State of Israel have been another sore point between the Jordanian people and the government. You see, there's this disconnect. I hope you're getting the picture here. There's a wide gap between the attitudes of the Jordanian people and that of the Jordanian government. And let me also point out, I was talking about those aid figures there, how much aid Jordan gets from the U.S. All those aid numbers don't include the cost of having U.S. bases in Jordan, and there are multiple U.S. bases in Jordan. So that's not even considered aid. That's just defense spending. And then there's the aid that goes to Jordan that's totally separate from that. You add it all up, the U.S. is probably spending more money in Jordan than they're spending in Israel. Everyone talks about how they're bankrolling Israel. Whatever, that's a separate topic. So issues relating to the State of Israel have been another sore point between the Jordanian people and the government, a point that has only become more noticeable with Iran's escalation in recent years. So Sufyan Altel, a political activist who signed the letter, so now we're hearing from that side, he told the New York Times that Jordan's capabilities were being exploited one way or another to defend Israel, reflecting a growing number of Jordanians who have vocalized the belief that the country is making sacrifices for the benefit of a foreign power. Now, to put this into a broader context, there were elections, parliamentary elections held in Jordan this past September. And the Jordanian parliament has 138 seats in it. And it's got an interesting setup. 97 of the 138 seats are chosen from local districts. So people are electing individuals to represent them from their local districts. And it's a total of 97 seats from 18 areas. And it's determined by individual popularity and tribal affiliation usually. So that's considered kind of the tribal vote. And then there are 41 seats that go to national parties, okay? And so that's proportional representation in a single nationwide election, okay? So when you vote in Jordan, you vote in your district for your local representatives who are going to sit in the same parliament as a second vote that you cast for a national party. You actually cast two votes. Okay, and so licensed political parties can run for those 41 national seats. And this is a recent arrangement. This arrangement's been adjusted at various points over the years. In 2022, they passed a law to create what I just described. Now, what happened when in the election, in the most recent election it wasn't this past September. It was, I made a mistake. It's September 2024. So it's almost 2 years ago when the last election took place. And what happened in that election is that the Muslim Brotherhood aligned party, the Islamic Action Front, won out of the 41 national seats, right? There's 138 seats, 97 go to local districts, tribes, and then 41 are voted on nationally. Of those 41 seats, they won 17 of them. Not half, but, more than a third, a lot of them. And they became by far the largest national party. No other single party running won more than 4 of those seats. So they won 17 of the seats. The remaining seats were by a bunch of different parties. So they're by far the most powerful party. And out of the 97 local seats, they control about 14 of them. And that gives them a total of 31 seats. And that makes them the largest single party in the Jordanian parliament. And you can only imagine that if there was more national voting, they would win even more. So they are by far the most, and they're ascendant. They're growing. They're the largest party in the parliament. That's the Muslim Brotherhood aligned Islamic Action Front. Okay, so that's what's happening in Jordan. And let's remember also that Jordan is well over 90% Sunni Muslim, which is where the Muslim Brotherhood, that's their bread and butter. Okay, so this is a story from Middle East Eye from September 2024, covering these elections. Jordan, Islamic opposition makes large gains in parliamentary elections. The Islamic Action Front has made significant gains in Jordan's parliamentary elections, right? They won 32 seats so far. Jordanians voted on Tuesday in the first general election under a new electoral law designed to allow political parties to play for a bigger role in the 138-seat parliament, and they won 41 seats in total. And yeah, that's where things stand in the parliament. And then there was this analytical piece that talks a little bit about what this all means internally. So, and this was also written. This is an analytical piece written a week after the election, analyzing the results on Arab Reform Initiative. Look what it says here. The Islamic Action Front, the political arm of the Jordanian Muslim Brotherhood, made significant gains in the country's parliamentary elections, won 31 out of the 138 seats. And then look what it says here. The IAF, the Islamic Action Front, founded in 1992, is the largest, most organized, and most influential opposition party in Jordanian politics. Local and regional causes and issues, especially the genocidal war in Gaza, played a major role in its recent victory. The presence of the Islamists at the forefront of the pro-Gaza movement and the visit of its members to the house of the perpetrator of Operation Dignity on King Hussein Bridge, lorry driver Maher al-Jazi, one day before the election kickoff, had an impact on Jordanian voters. Let me explain what happened here. There was an event that took place shortly before this where a Jordanian truck driver, crossing over at the border crossing between Jordan and Israel, where lots of trucks pass back and forth every day, opened fire and murdered a few Israeli border guards. I think 3 Israeli border guards were murdered. Okay, it was just a terrorist incident. The leaders of the Islamic Action Front visited the home of this truck driver. And he was being greeted in the, he was being considered, I mean, he was killed in the process, but he was being considered a national hero for what he did. Okay, Maher al-Jazi. Maher al-Jazi, here's the guy. This is the event here. September 8th, 2024, 2 days before the election, he carried out a shooting attack, killed 3 Israeli civilian border guards. Okay. On the streets of Jordan, some citizens gathered to celebrate the attack amid widespread anger over the war in Gaza. Okay, that's what happened. So they visited his home, treating him like more of a hero, elevating them, and that actually increased their vote totals. That was a campaign move. It had an impact on Jordanian voters. The Islamists raised clear signs in their campaign, symbolizing the red triangle of Hamas, a small icon to pinpoint Israeli targets on video coverage of the fighting. At the same time, some of these leaders are convinced that the election results are a natural consequence and a reflection of the influence of the Islamists in the Jordanian street. The win also came in the absence of major security interventions to reduce the size of Islamist movements in these elections, meaning in past elections, the government had tried to minimize the influence of the Muslim Brotherhood and the Islamists, and they didn't do that this time, and that led to a larger turnout for them. Voting for Islamists is a natural consequence of the deepening crisis of trust in the government. This gap has been widening for years since Jordanians felt that successive governments failed to find adequate solutions to economic issues that impact their living standards. So, yeah, that's what's going on in Jordan. This is what I wanted to accomplish in this video, is just kind of clue you in. We don't talk about Jordan much. We think of it as a moderate state. Sometimes people think of it as kind of in the UAE, Morocco, peaceful Abraham Accords group, but they're not. And my good friend Avi Abelo over at Pulse of Israel wrote about this the other day, about what's going on in Jordan, and he made some very, very good points. He talked about how King Abdullah understands the necessity of having security cooperation with America and with Israel, and this is all true. That Abdullah knows that the American military presence helps protect Jordan, not only from Iran, but also from the jihadist forces that are trying to overthrow him. But that letter written by now hundreds, signed by now hundreds of Jordanian public figures, it really exposes the deeper truth. And this is Avi Abelo's words. While Jordan's government cooperates with the West, significant currents within Jordanian society view Israel, not Iran, as the primary enemy. He goes on to write that lasting security requires more than a military presence. It requires, for Israel, it requires our own security control. And we cannot assume the Jordanian monarchy, with a peace deal with Israel, will be in place forever. If the Hashemite monarchy, if Abdullah's monarchy is ever overthrown by these Islamists, Israel's quiet eastern border will become our next front line. And it could happen. Think about this. You have a population on the other side of the Jordanian border that is actually pretty aligned with the jihadists. And if they ever rise up, if they ever overthrow Abdullah's regime, or if he ever somehow capitulates to them, because they're gaining influence in that country, they're gaining power in the parliament. And if that ever becomes, if they ever overthrow Abdullah, then we then have our longest border, Israel's border with Jordan, the longest border Israel has, which has largely been a peaceful border, suddenly becomes the border with a jihadist-aligned country. That's why this letter, and Avi goes on to say, that's why this letter matters. It is not just another political statement, it is a warning. The lesson is simple. Believe people when they tell you who their enemy is. So the Jordan situation is very worrisome. It's very real. And it's, we need to keep an eye on what's happening there. And what I'm expecting to see is, or what I'm watching carefully, is what type of relationship does Erdogan have with Jordan? What type of relationship does he start to build? Because you see the way Erdogan is behaving, where he's got Syria now under his control, and he's working more closely with Egypt. And the Syrian foreign minister recently went over to Lebanon, and he's trying to put his fingers into the Lebanon situation, and he's got his fingers in the Iraq situation. And it'll be interesting to see if Erdogan starts to make moves to gain more influence in Jordan. And so long term, Israel's threats are changing, and it's certainly good to deal with the Iranian proxies, but we shouldn't be too Pollyannish about this. And the Jordan border could become a concern very quickly. On the economic front, it makes no sense for Jordan to give up on the U.S. alliance. Jordan's economy is pretty weak, and they need that U.S. money. They need that U.S. security guarantees. They're not a very powerful country, but we see that the Islamists are stirring. They're becoming more vocal. They're becoming more public, and that's why this letter is so worrisome and so important. All right, that's my update. Hope it was helpful. Please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and make sure you sign up if you're in the New York area and you can make it on Sunday at 5 p.m. Of course, you don't know where it is yet, so just feel free to sign up so that you can find out where it is, and then you can decide if you can go or not. We'd like to gauge how many people are interested in this event. Again, that's this coming Sunday at 5 p.m. in New York. God bless.